Hello and welcome to another MrBetaByte video, and in this one we're looking at another Sony HF100. I've already checked this out and I already know what one of the issues is. Bought this a while back from eBay and it's in pretty good order. It's fairly tidy and hopefully it should make a really good machine again. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Okay, so powered on. So far so good. So reels seem okay. That labelling can be cracked plastic, but we'll see. Cracked plastic that's holding the reel tables. Let's press play. I think I've got it right. Okay, so this is what we have. So we've got slow capstan, slow heads. You can see the heads are running just a bit slow, so it's not properly meeting the frame speed. The VU meters look okay, which is always a bonus. Let's give it some sound. Yeah, so it's not happy. Now what you can't see on this TV, which I did see when I was using my Sony TV, the CRT, is there are actually noise bands, power supply noise bands running up the screen, and you can just about see them. Maybe yes, you can. There you go. It blanks, which on the Sony it doesn't blank, so you get much more of an idea of the issue. But my gut feeling so far is that it's a power supply fault. I suspect the capacitors are bad, probably on the 12-volt rail. It'll be one of the, I think it's 2200 microfarad capacitors. I think there's two of them. Might be wrong. Just doing this off the top of my head. Yeah, I think that'll be the problem. So I suppose the next thing is to take the cover off and see what the deck's actually like. I've not removed the cover, so we'll be both witnessing this at the same time. Okay, so cover's off, and doesn't look too bad. It's obviously seen a bit of life. Probably been stored in a totally inappropriate place, like an attic or somewhere hot and cold, and yeah, I mean, obviously not taking the cover off, which might have been a nice thing to do, but the plastics look fairly clean. Let's just eject it. Yeah, that feels like either the spool, metal shaft in the spool here, the plastic's cracked around it. This one's fine. This one has play, maybe. Don't know. But we'll go through it all. I mean, with these, you have to go through everything. Even if you think it's okay, you've got to do the deck, take it apart, check it, Hall effect, clean the glue off, and then lift or examine each board and look for the telltale brown marks of where capacitors have leaked. Because even if it works perfectly, it won't for long. So yeah, so I suppose the first thing is to whip out the power supply and just check these capacitors. I suppose I could put a scope on, it'd be quite nice. I really must get around to sorting my scope out, and just see what the ripple's like on the power supply, but I'm pretty confident there are going to be problems with this, so let's just change the main 12-volt caps, do a general check. So let's get this power supply out. Already noticed there's 2 of the 4 screws on the top here missing. Fall them in. That's fine. Screw retrieved. Then unplug connectors, and like I constantly say in videos, Sony are really good at making connectors unique, and so I can quite happily remove those and not worry about labeling them, because they only go in one place on the power supply. So that's a little connector that goes down to the board underneath the power supply. There's a struggle for my screwdriver. You need to remagnetize that tip as well. And there we go, power supply out. So it's fairly dust free, it's actually not bad at all. Don't want bothering too much with that because I'll take the whole back off and the whole bottom board off. Being careful not to hit the heads. Yeah, it's pretty clean. Lovely. So, now to get the board actually off this, off the actual metal chassis. They're actually long ones. The ones that go through the board are the longer ones. The self-tappers, the shorter ones go in the back of the case. So, yeah, it's got a bit hot and dusty. I'll give that a clean. So I'd say this has been in a fairly smoky environment in its time, and yeah, you can sort of see where the smoke has got in. cobweb in there as well. So I am actually tempted to change some of these capacitors as well. I'll check them and we'll look to change them because they don't look happy. Maybe. Okay, so I've taken it apart, got to the SS28 board, which is the Servo board, and Syscon. And looking at the board, there are no capacitors that have browned the board, so nothing is visibly leaking. But I have had problems with the Sanyo caps, much like the older like C5, C7 type machines. They are starting to go bad in these now. So, and indeed, if I sort of wet finger them, which I know in theory shouldn't make any difference, but I can actually get it to perform much better or differently, or in some cases worse, i.e. I'm adding to the leakage possibly they're already introducing. So yeah, I'm going to change those and we'll see what the results are like. So the two Sony capacitors have been changed, and I've also replaced the, I think I've thrown them away now, the yellow pads that these all use with modern 3M type non-conductive double-sided. And I have done a couple of other caps as well, because there are some likely candidates that will give problems. They actually checked all okay. This one here, it's 10 volt 470 for example, that can cause problems. Checked fine on the meter. These two checked fine. This one can sizzle sometimes, so changed that. That actually checked a little bit off, but not bad. The two Sanyo caps, which are replaced by this one, and where's the other one? Can we see it? No, sorry, this one. This one I just changed as well. This one, and this one. They were both reading high ESR and odd values. So that's the result. I mean, it's amazing just how good that is. Just adjusting the tracking. It's not bad. Tracking at the top end is a bit severe, but no, that's really good. So yeah, really pleased with that. So get it back together, give it a clean out, and we'll do some more tests and checks. So bottom cover is as good as I can get it. There's only so much you can really do, I suppose. Cleaned off the contamination off the inside of it as well. I think this machine has been in a room with a wood burner or something. It's not bad, but there is sort of, still see some of it, there is sort of a covering of something. It's not nicotine, because it doesn't smell, isn't tar-like. But yeah, and I will say I do use this stuff. Now, a lot of TV and video engineers have a love-hate with this stuff because it will take off print. So what I've found with this is it tends to be fine with Sony's. Does a really good job, lifts out all the rubbish and leaves the print perfectly intact. Things like Panasonic's. The Panasonic videos have metallized tape transport buttons. If you spray that on those, the print will come straight off. It will just lift it straight off. And the amount of times I've forgotten and I've just taken the print straight off is crazy. Technics tape decks, another one. It will just lift it off, so don't ever use it on metallized style assemblies or buttons or whatever, because it will lift off the print. But on plastics, I mean, obviously test it first, but otherwise, you know, on Sony stuff especially, it works really well and it will get it really, really clean and just lift out all the rubbish. Would highly recommend that. You can get this from eBay, but also I think Farnell, CPC do it, various other places as well. But yeah, good stuff. Another common problem with these is that the connectors here will break off. I mean, obviously nobody uses the RF out anymore, and the constant sort of in and out with connectors on the back here can actually break the solder over time, or the actual pad. So what I tend to like to do is the center pin of each connector, just put a wire to wherever I can find a trace, and an earth as well, or ground, and yeah, it just makes it a lot more reliable. So we'll go and do that now. So that's all done. Not my best work, but it's solid, and that should stop any sort of issues with any PCB breaks. So on to the next bit. A common problem with these now is the actual metal shafts here and here of the reels. The plastic around the base of these is cracking, and if you can rock these, either one, you know that's a problem. It will cause all sorts of issues with poor rewind, fast forward, excessive back tension, and cutting out as well when they get really bad. So the fix for that is just basically dropping the reel assembly down, and you would have seen that earlier in this video, and using super glue gel to fill in the cracks. You can use araldite as well. I've used both, and they both seem to work really well. And just sort of fill in all the cracks. And what I do while I'm in there, because generally if these are cracked, then there's cracks everywhere, is just go through all the cracks, including the ones for the screw holes, holders, or holding bits. And yeah, just make sure they're all really solid and really good. So yeah, but these are actually perfect, which is great. So the next thing is to clean up the head drum, which actually doesn't look too bad, but yeah, still needs to be cleaned. So the next thing is to clean the tape path. And you can already see I've taken the upper drum off. It was quite dirty, so I just sort of remove it, give it a good clean. I've also cleaned the pinch roller. These are very forgiving, these pinch rollers, as long as you've got a good run on with the actual bearings, so you can flick the pinch roller and it carries on running for a couple of seconds or a few seconds, you know it's good. I've seen pinch rollers with really good bearings but really terrible rubber perform flawlessly, so that's sort of worth bearing in mind. Don't be put off by what appears to be really bad rubber and think that's what's causing the issue with tracking and odd tape path issues. It's probably going to be the bearing. And I have known bearings almost collapse on these as well. So yeah, so on the HF100, actually got 2 screws as well as the Allen bolt goes through here, which is 2.5mm, seem to remember. And there's the assembly there. So you can see it's quite bad, quite grubby, so it makes sense to get it off. To take it off without having to remove these, just remove the 2 screws from this first, take that off, and then undo the rest, lift off the drum, unplug this by pulling gently on the bits of plastic down here, not by the wires, because the wires have a tendency to very easily pop out of the plastic. So yes, I'll give that a clean, put it back together, and move on to the next bit. So that's back together. I've even cleaned the plastic. It's actually come out quite white, which is nice. So yeah, I was a bit worried that drum, the upper drum especially, was very badly worn, but it actually isn't. It's fine. Once I cleaned off all the muck. You can see I've done a very good job of the lower drum, just at the portion just before the guide there. But I'm not too worried because the tape doesn't touch there. I probably will give it another clean just because I like it nice. But at this stage, I'm not too worried. Tape doesn't touch there, so that's fine. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. Shining all the way around on the top drum there. So the next thing is I'm just going to lift this assembly up and check the loading gear for the lacing, because I have a habit of splitting. If there's even the slightest crack there, I'm going to change it. I've got pattern gears that will fit this beautifully. They just super glue straight on, and I've never had a failure with them, to be honest. They've been great. So that's the next thing. We'll check that. So just lift this up, and you can see there is no cracking there at all. That is perfect. That's probably one of the best I've seen. It's not even stressed. So I'm really pleased that that's in good condition. So I'm happy to put this back together now and know that we're not going to get any loading issues. So yeah, you can see how it all goes together. This belt here, when you take it off, is tight, even with the tensioner fully relaxed. It's quite difficult to get off, and you have to be a bit careful because there's only 3 little lugs holding this top portion here to stop the belt coming off, and they break really easily. You can glue them back on, but it's never the same. So yeah, so I'll give it a bit of a clean in there as well, just so it's nice. But yeah, really pleased to see that. It's really good news. I will give it a little bit of a lubricate as well, just lubricate these gears and here as well. It's the tiniest bit of silicone, because silicone does creep, which is good for this application, as long as you only use a tiny little bit. So yeah, it's a silicone spray. So that's back on. Another thing that's worth checking is taking this off. Here, it's held on with a single clip. This center gear can get a crack in it, and this is difficult to repair. To be honest, I tend to use a scrap deck, which I have very few of now. But this does crack, and these also have a tendency to seize up. So again, tiny bit of silicone lubricant is enough just to get them going again. Also, when you take this off, I forgot to mention this, just be careful you don't upset the loading ring and the pinch roller arm. And you can check where you are. I mean, that's slightly off now because I've moved it, but once it's been on, but there's a hole there, and that hole needs to line up with the hole in the deck. With this fully unloaded, so that's how you can sort of just make sure you haven't disturbed anything. But of course I have moved it, so I've been playing with it since it's been together. So I suppose the next thing is to put that back on, put the solenoid actuated switch back in, and switches between driving the loading rings and the eject, and give it a try. So all back together and looking pretty clean. Very pleased with that. I've also, which would have been probably quite nice to show you actually, but I've done it now. I've actually partially laced up the deck, and the reason I wanted to do that was I wanted to clean the 2 guides you can see coming out into view now, and these are quite fragile. It's quite easy to bend these back on themselves if you're not careful. So what I do is I just load the ring so far so they're both accessible. Then I use a cotton bud or Q-tip with some isopropyl on and just give them a good but gentle clean. And they were filthy. They were really mucky. So yeah, so that's really the whole tape path done now. I've also done the other guides as well, and the back tension arm, and obviously the capstan. It's had a good clean, although it wasn't really very mucky, to be fair. It's about the only part of this that isn't. And so yeah, I think we're about ready to give this a whirl. Got a nice back, there we go. So, moment of truth to try it. So I have actually already loaded a tape just to see what the transport's like now. And I can't remember if I showed it earlier in the video, but it was a bit sluggish. This is what it's like now. Just so much better. Sounds better too. So I'll just turn that down. It's Brit Awards 1997. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this. Yeah, it's not bad. The stills were never great on these, but let's forward search, reverse search. You can see what I mean about the pinch roller. It's actually really quite true. So tracking left, you see you just get that little bit of servo unlock, which is what you expect. Top end, oh, it's actually perfect. It was right to the top end. It's actually better than it was. It's amazing what a clean does. So yeah, so this machine is done. Needs a jolly good soak test now. Ideally about 20 hours at least. Recording needs to be checked. I've already hooked up the Roku so I can do a test recording. And yeah, that's it. I'm really pleased with this. So well, thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe. I'm noticing probably about 60% of the people that watch these videos aren't subscribed, and it does really help. I'm trying to build the channel if I can. Means I can do this for longer, so which I'd really like to do. I've got so much more I want to do, so much more I want to learn. So yeah, so please do subscribe and like as well. It all helps. And thank you very much, and I will see you in another video. Bye for now.